Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. Today on the show, population numbers are up in Michigan, but the suburbs lead the surge.
We unpack what's drawing people farther from the city and who's choosing to make Detroit home.
Plus, unsung cultural icons have shaped Detroit quietly, yet profoundly. The Ghostlight Gala remembers their legacies.
And Mexican Town becomes Detroit's global stage this weekend.
We'll think about music's power to unite and strengthen communities.
But first, come November, Detroit residents will decide who will replace Mike Duggan as mayor. There are 9 candidates plus 2 write-ins. With so many possibilities, it can be hard for voters to get a handle on what each candidate stands for and who is most likely to represent their values and interests. One of the ways voters measure a candidate is by their endorsements. In May, with a still crowded field of candidates, the UAW announced its endorsement for Solomon Kinloch Jr. Kinloch is currently battling for second with several other candidates, all of whom are behind frontrunner Mary Sheffield, who maintains a sizable lead. In Detroit, a UAW endorsement has always carried considerable weight. But with membership down in recent decades and with shifting political views within the rank and file, does a UAW endorsement today mean the same thing it used to? Here to talk about the UAW's endorsement of Solomon Kinloch Jr. is Laura Dickerson, the Region 1A Director of UAW. Region 1A covers most of Wayne County, including part of Detroit, Monroe County, and Washtenaw County, and extends to the Ohio border. Laura Dickerson, thank you for joining us on the Metro.
Oh, absolutely. What an honor it is to be here this morning.
It's an honor to have you. And a note of disclosure before we start, WDET News and Programming staff are members of the UAW Professional and Administrative Union Local 1979 at Wayne State University. So first, last month, the UAW endorsed Solomon Kinloch Jr. for Detroit mayor, as I mentioned. Why did the UAW endorse Kinloch?
Well, first and foremost, our members, we go through a process. And so we had a screening process, and our members felt that Solomon Kinloch represented the values that we follow and go behind in the UAW. He is for working families, and also, too, he has a number of constituents that are members, constituents of his church that are members of the UAW. And Solomon Kinloch had been a member himself.
Ah, okay. All right. This helps us to understand more the support then. What can a Detroit mayor offer UAW workers exactly?
Well, when you really think about what's been happening in Detroit, a lot of people, their perception is that all of the funds and investment are pushed to downtown. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our members who are residents don't see that in their neighborhoods. And so what they're really looking for is a mayor that's not only going to represent the interest of business, but also represent the interest of our members, our residents who live in the city. There are things that they're looking for, and not that there hasn't been any investment, but in large scale, it's all been downtown. People are really looking for that in their neighborhood.
The UAW's support of Kinloch is notable, though, not just because a UAW endorsement means a lot here in Detroit, but because it came so early in the process. And when you talk about Kinloch's support for spreading this revival that Detroit is experiencing and getting into those neighborhoods, we haven't heard a lot of concrete policies from Kinloch. So I'm wondering, why endorse Kinloch back in May?
Well, once again, there are policies that he has, strategies that he will speak about as part of his campaign. But our membership, once again, the reason we got out early is because we wanted to make sure that we endorsed the right person, first and foremost. Secondly, we got out early because we want to make sure that whoever we put our will behind that we're making sure that we're helping to campaign for them in some form or fashion. And so that would give us time. As you are thinking, August is the primary, right?
Yeah.
And so after that, we get into the general election. It is a crowded pool, and getting out early gave us an advantage to really get ahead of things.
So you see this as a very strategic move to put all the force and weight of the UAW into the candidate that you endorse.
Absolutely.
Were other leading candidates, though, like I'm thinking about Santiel Jenkins, Fred Durhal, or Mary Sheffield, given any serious consideration? Because when we talk about making sure that more of Detroit's neighborhoods are getting the attention that they need, that the wealth and the success of downtown is spreading into local neighborhoods. A lot of other candidates are talking a lot about this too. So talk more about what is setting Kinloch apart from them.
Well, they were also a part of the process as well. I think one thing that really set him apart is the fact that he's a member. And I know Durhal is a member as well, right? But two, he just connects to the people. People really have seen the work that he's done in his church, what he does in the community. And that was part of the reason, because they want someone who's more community based than they've had in the past. Also, too, this campaign is really going to be about our neighborhoods, our people in the city versus big business. And I think we saw that in the article that came out about Mary Sheffield and her PAC and who contributes to her PAC.
So what you're saying then is Mary Sheffield has been promoting the fact that she's been able to bring in a lot of money. She's raising big dollars for her campaign, and you're actually seeing that as a negative.
Well, I'm not saying it's a negative, but what I'm saying is it's a perspective of the constituents in the community. Most times when you see someone who may be getting money from big business, then their thought is, well, what about me, right? And that is a lot of what we heard from our folks as they were screening and going through the screening processes. We want someone who's going to represent the community, who's going to represent our members, who's going to represent the residents in the community.
Okay, so it is also kind of walking this fine line between being an outsider politically, but being an insider when we talk about community.
Right, absolutely. So, it could be viewed that way. I don't know that it's so much being an outsider. I wouldn't say that she's an outsider. But what I would say is that our folks, our people, our members.
I'm talking about Kinloch being more of an outsider politically, but an insider community-wise. Is that the draw there?
Yes, absolutely.
We do have to acknowledge, though, that since Mayor Duggan took office a decade ago, Detroit has changed a lot in terms of the UAW itself, that its influence and strength has changed in that time, too. Can you talk about that?
Well, Mayor Duggan has done a great job. Don't get me wrong, right? And we have a great relationship with him. We've appreciated him. He's done a lot for us as the UAW, for our members. And things have changed. We don't have as many members that may live in the city. However, we still have a large constituency of members. So we have 45,000 UAW members who live in the city of Detroit. That, with their households, amounts to about 135,000 UAW families in the city of Detroit.
Wow. If you're just joining us, this is the Metro on WDET. We're talking about the UAW's endorsement of Solomon Kinloch Jr. for Detroit mayor. Our guest is Laura Dickerson, Director of Region 1A for the United Auto Workers. I want to talk about politics and the ways that politics and UAW members and the UAW itself collide. Shawn Fain and the UAW endorsed Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. That was no surprise. But what did raise eyebrows was how UAW membership voted. Some exit polls showed at least 1/3 of union members across the U.S. voted for Trump. And the UAW's own poll here in Michigan showed that level of support for Trump. We've seen union members increasingly divided politically, particularly around issues of race, class, and the economy. How does the UAW navigate these divisions internally when choosing endorsements?
Well, I mean, we realize that our members have a choice, right? And they are able to choose who they vote for. What we do is provide people who represent the values that labor represents, right? And so for us, Kamala Harris represented that. And we do realize that we had a number of members who voted for Trump. That's their choice. We merely wanted to give them the choice of someone who would support us in labor, support us in the UAW.
Talk about the challenges of that, though, in terms of your union members, getting folks to understand that some of the candidates that they're supporting are very anti-union, are very anti-labor rights.
It's difficult, right? Like I said, we can only try and educate them. It is very challenging, however, because some people really stand behind the person that they believe in, right? But we believed in Kamala Harris. We put everything behind her, and we felt that she would best represent us. Now, I have to say, looking at things, and I'll use as an example tariffs, right? So tariffs have worked to our advantage here recently, and so we're really happy about that. But on a large scale, when you look at everything else, DEI, you look at our universities. So we have a number of higher ed members that we represent. There's a lot being taken away. So it makes it difficult from our perspective because it doesn't represent all of our members as a whole, but there are pockets where there are positives.
Let's stay on the subject of tariffs if we could, because I think it did surprise a lot of folks that Shawn Fain came out in favor of President Trump's tariffs, which include a 25% tax on imported cars and importantly for auto manufacturing here, car parts. Here's Fain speaking with journalist Major Garrett on Face the Nation.
If 700,000 cars or trucks fewer are being made and sold, how does that help your workforce?
Well, it doesn't. But we need to take a hard look at this because the same economists that are saying this now are the same ones in 1992 that said overnight when NAFTA was created there would be 400,000 jobs created in America in the first year. We know what happened there. They got it wrong. And the interesting part of me, all this crying about the effects of tariffs. I find it interesting because to me, this is just Wall Street. Now that Wall Street's upset about it, it's an issue. Where was Wall Street when all these manufacturing facilities have been leaving the country in the last 30 years?
Okay, so Major is talking about how 700,000 fewer cars will be made because of the auto tariffs, according to economists. Fain says he's concerned about those jobs going away, but he doesn't have an answer as to how tariffs will help workers. How do you think auto tariffs will help UAW workers?
Well, I would say this. Look at the news, right? So recently, GM announced a $4 billion investment, which included a number of their vehicles coming back to the U.S. To be manufactured and made here. That is a resounding example of what tariffs have done because GM sent a lot of their vehicles to Mexico. They have very few that were made here. That is not the case for Ford. And as you know, in about a couple of days or so, I will be the international vice president over the UAW Ford department.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That.
So we are very much focused and interested in these tariffs and making sure that we keep jobs here, good union jobs here.
I want to turn back to the mayoral race if we could, because earlier this month, Shawn Fain, again, UAW president, came out and stumped for Kinloch. A May poll from the Detroit News and WDIV showed that among union members, Mary Sheffield leads Kinloch 38% to 18%. I'm wondering what you're saying to UAW members who plan to support Sheffield over Kinloch.
Well, we ask our members to follow our endorsement. And the reason that we go through a process and we really think about the candidate that we endorse is because we want someone who represents our values. And I really think that Kinloch does that. Now, members may look at Sheffield, but they also, too, need to do their research. Like I said, as we talk about the people who are supporting her, there are questions, right, for the future. And not to say that she's not going to maybe look out for our members, but on a large scale, it is big business focused.
Laura Dickerson, before I let you go, I do want to have a moment to acknowledge some recent things transpiring with the UAW. The power of an endorsement from the UAW depends on the reputation and credibility of its leadership. And just this month, a court-appointed UAW watchdog compiled a 93-page report and found the UAW president, Shawn Fain, had violated the union's code of ethics when he stripped the union's secretary-treasurer, Margaret Mock, of her duties. The two had been in disagreement over a number of financial issues. And according to the report, Fain asked you to initiate the motion to change Margaret Mock's duties. So I want to give you the opportunity to respond to the watchdog's findings and recommendation to reinstate Margaret Mock's financial oversight duties that were taken away.
Well, first, let me say this. Our members need to read the Constitution. The Constitution gives our president the ability to assign. That has been there prior to Shawn Fain and will be there after Shawn Fain, hopefully, right? And so the reason the motion was made was to allow her to focus on her core responsibilities as our secretary-treasurer. And so I think people need to know more about what's going on. They can't believe everything that they hear in the news, and they really need to inform themselves by reading the Constitution and understanding the powers of the president of the UAW.
Is there anything more you can say to that about the powers of the president of the UAW?
Well, our Constitution gives him the power to handle our day-to-day operations. And so I will leave it at that.
Laura Dickerson is the director of Region 1A for the United Auto Workers. The UAW endorsed Solomon Kinloch Jr. to be Detroit's next mayor. The primary election is August 5th. The top two vote-getters will move on to the general election in November. We've spoken with several other candidates, including Solomon Kinloch Jr. To hear those conversations, find the Metro podcast or go to WDET.org. And again, full disclosure, WDET news and programming staff are members of the UAW Professional and Administrative Union, Local 1979 at Wayne State University. Laura, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
In 2024, Michigan's population increased. We'll find out next why people are mostly moving to places like Troy, Macomb Township, and the exurbs. This is the Metro on WDET. Stay with us.